Have you ever watched a game of chess where one move changes everything? That's exactly what happened today with the British royal family. Think about a game where you think you know all the rules, and then someone flips the board over. One minute, Queen Camilla was getting ready for a fancy event, and the next, her power just vanished. The way it all went down is way more interesting than just a simple headline. This wasn't some slow drama that took months. This whole thing happened in about 9 hours, and it started when a judge opened a special safe and ended with the Queen Consort's car parked outside a divorce lawyer's office. That last bit, the stop at the law firm, is where the story gets really wild. So picture this. Queen Camilla woke up this morning thinking she could just walk into the royal vault and grab the Vladimir Tiara. This isn't just any old sparkly hat. This thing is worth almost $15 million. Her team had already called the people in charge of the royal collection to get it ready for some important parties. They figured, of course, the queen consort can borrow whatever she wants. That's how it's always worked, right? The title comes with the stuff. Well, not anymore. At exactly 8:15 in the morning, at the Royal Courts of Justice, a very important judge named Sir Andrew McFarland did something that almost never happens. He opened a secret safe that holds exactly 33 sealed royal wills. Normally, these documents are locked away for 90 years to keep the royal family from fighting over things. You can only open one early if there's a big fight that could hurt the royal family's reputation. And it turns out, the fight over this tiara was a big enough deal. When they opened that will, the late Queen Elizabeth II had a special rule written inside. This rule completely destroyed Queen Camilla's plan. The legal papers said that the Vladimir Tiara belongs to Catherine, the Princess of Wales. It also said that nobody else can make a claim to it. This wasn't some fuzzy language that you could argue about. The late Queen was saying, "This tiara goes to Catherine, period. No new title changes that." The meeting in the briefing room was fast and there was no messing around. Someone who was there told us exactly what happened. When the judge's rule was presented, the lawyer for Princess Catherine didn't try to make a deal or let Queen Camilla borrow it. The lawyer just said that the late Queen's rule was the law and the tiara stays with Catherine. Queen Camilla's team tried to argue back. They said the Queen consort needs these fancy jewels for her important duties and to represent the country. And honestly, that's not a crazy argument. The queen consort does have a job where wearing important jewelry matters, but the judge shut that down fast. He said the royal collection is run by the rules of the person who owned it, and those rules are more important than any new title. That decision was the foundation for everything that happened today. It started the creation of a new rule called RC 805. This wasn't just a suggestion or a strongly worded email. This was a hard stop. It meant that anytime anyone wants to take a valuable item from the vault, there has to be a strict check. Because the court said Queen Camilla didn't own the tiara, she could no longer just take what she wanted. Every single request she makes for any important jewelry now has to go through a special review. This basically took away the special power that came with her job. By 10:45 in the morning, the group that advises the king made the court's decision official and told all the senior staff about the new rules. But hold on, because this is where things get even more intense. A sealed will, even though it's the law, is really just a piece of paper. It's not usually enough to take away all the power of a sitting queen consort. To make a rule this big stick, you need someone willing to push hard. And that someone was Princess Anne. At exactly 10:45, the fight moved from the courtroom to a secret meeting room inside St. James's Palace. In a room called Room K, this room is special because it's only about 42 meters big, and they sweep it for listening devices all the time. There are no recorders in there. Whatever happened in that room was never supposed to be told to the public. But the results were too big to hide. The emergency meeting of the king's advisors lasted exactly 48 minutes. According to people who know what happened, Princess Anne did not show up to make peace or smooth things over. She came to play hardball. She walked to the center of the table and put down a special folder and a secure digital drive. That drive reportedly had a secret audio recording from the late Queen's final days at Balmoral Castle. Then, looking right at the king's representatives, she gave them a choice. Her message was clear. Either the people causing trouble in the administration get fired, or she takes that recording straight to the House of Commons. To understand how scary that threat was, you have to know what taking something to the House of Commons actually does. Princess Anne wasn't just threatening to make a speech or get bad press. She was threatening to use a special rule that would make everything public. Here's how it works. If evidence of senior staff messing with royal property gets presented to Parliament, it forces a government investigation into how the monarchy spends taxpayer money. That kind of investigation can lead to a vote where the government decides if they even trust the palace to manage its money. It's a total nightmare that could put the entire monarchy's funding in danger. Faced with that huge threat, the king's representatives had no choice. To save the crown's reputation and protect its money, they had to agree to Anne's demands. The result was absolute. Before the meeting ended, an order was written to fire people. Here's the smart part, though. The order didn't punish Queen Camilla directly. That would have been a messy legal problem. Instead, it went after the very people who gave her power. The order fired her top aides and advisors. These were the staff members who had helped her bypass the rules. In one quick move, the shield protecting Queen Camilla was gone. Without her hand-picked team to run things, her ability to control palace business just vanished. So that's the legal part and how they made it happen. But the smartest move of the day had nothing to do with jewels or tiaras. To really take down a rival, you don't just lock the vault. You destroy the machine that makes their voice heard. And the final target was the team that ran Queen Camilla's PR and media machine. At exactly 12:30 in the afternoon, the result of the king's advisor's decision arrived at Clarence House, Queen Camilla's office. Inside, things seemed normal. Four senior aides, including her top private secretary and main media person, were taking a break and having a cup of tea. They had no idea that an order to fire them had been approved an hour earlier. That quiet moment ended when the doors opened without warning. A team of royal protection officers walked into the office. This wasn't a meeting about restructuring or a nice chat. It was a straight-up eviction. Before any of the staff could send a warning email, the palace IT department shut down their computer access. Their special security clearances, which let them see private schedules and emails, were taken away. The rules for this kind of firing are fast, quiet, and strict. The aides were told to leave their desks right away and were not allowed to take their work laptops, tablets, or any paper files. This is a standard security rule to stop people from copying secret information or deleting evidence. Under the watchful eyes of security, these four people, who had so much power just that morning, were walked out of the building. The whole thing took exactly 15 minutes. Those 15 minutes completely destroyed a deep and powerful PR machine. For months, this group of advisors had been the hidden architects of Queen Camilla's public image. They were the ones making connections with news outlets, managing how she looked in public, and carefully guiding good stories, especially in the American press. They were her shield and her microphone. With them suddenly gone, that important flow of information was cut off. There was no longer a team to brief friendly journalists, control the story, or defend against the bad news from the morning's court decisions. Queen Camilla was suddenly and completely cut off from her own communication network. Without her key strategists to handle the media, she was left exposed, facing a changing palace with no way to fight back. Now, while Queen Camilla's team was being taken apart, you might wonder how the Princess of Wales reacted to all this craziness. Usually in the modern monarchy, you'd send out a press release. But sometimes, staying completely quiet during a huge fight is the smartest move of all. At exactly 2:45 in the afternoon, everything changed, and it happened in the White Drawing Room inside Buckingham Palace. This room is important because it's usually used for official meetings with important people. Catherine walked in wearing a sharp dark blue coat dress. According to palace workers, the mood was super serious and businesslike. There were no cameras, no official photographers, and no smiles. She didn't make a speech or hold a press conference. She just walked to an old desk, picked up a fancy pen, and signed her name at the bottom of a single classified document called Form 4 ARCT. To most people, it might look like boring paperwork. But in the strict world of the monarchy, that signature was a final winning move. Here's why this paperwork is so powerful. First, by signing that form, Catherine officially became the co-president of the Royal Heritage Trust. This isn't just a fancy title to make her look good. It's a real executive job with serious legal power over the institution's most valuable historical stuff. Second, this signature gave her private office the digital keys to the Royal Jewel Vault. The physical doors might be guarded, but the power to actually open them now requires her digital permission. Third, and most importantly, this signature set a new permanent rule. From the moment the ink dried, if Queen Camilla wants to borrow any heritage piece worth over $100,000, she can't just ask the vault manager. The request has to be formally sent to the trust, which means it lands right on Catherine's desk. As the new boss, the Princess of Wales now has the power to say no to any request. She can look at the request and just stamp it, denied, based on the new rules from the court. She doesn't have to explain herself to Queen Camilla or anyone else. There were no public fights, no dramatic hallway arguments, and no room for debate. With one signature in a quiet room, the keys to the Windsor vault officially changed hands. Catherine didn't need to yell or leak a story to the press to get her way. She used the exact rules of the institution to protect her power, effectively locking the doors from the inside. So now we have a queen consort without her crown, without her trusted team, and suddenly cut off from her voice. The big question is, what does this final stage of isolation actually look like? At exactly 5:00 in the evening, the big iron gates of Buckingham Palace opened. London was covered in a steady grey rain, setting a dark, quiet background for an exit that nobody in the press was ready to capture. A single black car, with only a few security guards, drove out of the palace and into normal traffic. There were no flashing lights, no police sirens, and no royal fanfare. The departure was completely silent and almost unnoticed by the public. At the same time, the royal press team got a strange one-line email from the central office. It said that the queen consort needs an extended period of rest at her private home, Ray Mill House. In the careful world of the monarchy, this is not a vacation or a break. It's what insiders call a soft exile. The institution doesn't need to publicly demote her or have a messy media war. They just take away her platform by calling it a need for rest. The palace avoids a public crisis while getting what it wants: distance. Ray Mill House is her private property in Wiltshire, far from the center of government. More importantly, it's not connected to the official royal network. It doesn't have the secure systems, the classified communication lines, or the executive staff needed to run palace operations. By sending her there, the system has basically unplugged her from the institution's main computer. In simple terms, a queen consort gets her power from being close to the king and from being part of the daily work of the state. When you take away the daily briefings, limit access to internal documents, and stop her from calling senior officials, the title becomes just for show. This is what civil isolation looks like within the royal family. It's a clever administrative move designed to quietly shut down a rival center of power. Just days ago, Queen Camilla was at the top of the world. Now, she's politically empty, left with a fancy title but no way to use it. For someone who spent decades dealing with public criticism and tricky palace politics to get to the top, this sudden fall is the ultimate punishment. The real disaster for someone whose power depends on being seen isn't a public fight or being officially fired. Those things create noise, and the monarchy survives by controlling noise. The most devastating thing is the absolute silence of the system that has decided to move on without you. It's the chilling realization that the scheduling offices, the Heritage Trust, and the Global Communication Network are now working perfectly under new management. As the car drove away into the evening rain, it left behind a completely changed palace. Queen Camilla left the capital not as a partner in power, but as an isolated figure locked out of the heart of the Windsor dynasty. But if you think the dust has settled and the new hierarchy is now safe, you might be totally wrong. It's easy to look at the quiet exit from Buckingham Palace and think it's over. But ask yourself, do you really think someone who spent 30 years carefully plotting and dealing with obstacles to finally get to the throne would just accept losing all her power in 9 hours? Let's look closely at the timeline of that departure. At exactly 6:12 in the evening, Queen Camilla's car was supposed to be heading west to her quiet house. However, tracking information shows that the car did not get on the highway toward Ray Mill House. Instead, the group made a sudden, secret detour back into the heart of the city. The car drove through traffic and stopped, idling for exactly 12 minutes outside a very specific, very private address. Number 44 Berkeley Square in Mayfair. This place is completely separate from the royal world. It's not a palace, a government office, or a charity. According to business records, this building is the main office for one of the most aggressive and famous divorce law firms in the UK. This firm doesn't deal with royal rules or trusts. Their worldwide specialty is handling big money divorces, splitting up assets, and writing strict non disclosure agreements. People who saw the car noted that during those 12 minutes, a loyal aide got out of the car, carrying a single plain black briefcase. That briefcase was handed directly to a lawyer waiting inside the firm's big wooden doors. The palace's plan today may have successfully locked down the Windsor jewel vault and secured Catherine's power. But by isolating Queen Camilla so quickly and so completely, has the palace accidentally started a totally different and way less controllable crisis. When someone this important is completely locked out of the palace system, they're often forced to look for power in the only place the monarchy can't control: behind closed doors, the civil court system. After 30 years inside the inner circle, Queen Camilla has an unmatched understanding of how the institution works in private. Is this unexpected stop in Mayfair the first step in preparing a huge legal filing? A move that could challenge her marriage agreement, and by extension, threaten to legally expose the closely guarded and highly secret financial setup of the entire royal household. When they lock the internal doors, other routes, often unpredictable, get forced open. The question now isn't whether the palace successfully contained Queen Camilla's power today. The real question is whether containing her so completely and so publicly pushed her toward the one battlefield where the palace has absolutely no control at all.